I've got 5 things I want to skip through as quickly as possible because at some point in the business, we want to get motivated. At some point, we need vision and we need belief and we need the big picture, right? And some points in the business, we want to know how to do this. Okay, I'm motivated and excited. I'm putting in the effort. Now I want to get results. I want to be effective. So I must admit I'm a little bit more on the how end of the scale, okay? If you want vision and you want belief and so forth, well, go Diamond. Listen to Mitch Sala, listen to Peter Cox, listen to those sort of people. But I'm much more on the how to do this end of the spectrum. So talking here at the leaders meeting, I want to talk about a subject that you've probably not heard of before. I mean, if you've been around the business for a relatively short period of time, chances are you wouldn't have heard of this. So this is our subject today. One of our subjects. I'm going to try and do 5. Subject is called core. Anyone heard of that before? Yeah. Well, look, at home, I've taken a bit of an interest in cooking. Now, I'm certainly not a great cook, and I don't aspire to be a great cook, but I certainly believe, like Jamie Oliver, that if we have a situation today where the average 9-year-old can identify 1,000 brands but only 7 different types of fruit and vegetables. Anyone on my wavelength? I mean, the average 9-year-old apparently can identify 1,000 different brands. Their Nikes and their KFCs and whatever else it is, but literally 7 different types of fruit and vegetables. So what Jamie Oliver's saying is, how on earth can people eat healthy if they can't even cook healthy because they can't go to the supermarket and identify what it is they're trying to buy? So one of the things I want to do is I want to influence my children, my family, to be able to cook. But I'm not the sort of father who stands at the side of the swimming pool and says, you guys should swim. I get in the pool. So I don't want to be the father who stands outside the kitchen and tells my kids, you kids should be able to cook something. So I go into the kitchen and I cook something, So I actually like cooking. And the other day, one of my favourite dishes is actually dal, So, it's a really kind of standard Indian dish, but I really enjoy making dal. And I got this recipe. Now, if you came to me and you came to my house and you ate my dal and you said, oh, that's really good, I'd like to be able to make the same dal. Now, if I give you the recipe and it's got 7 different ingredients, right? 7 different ingredients in the dal. One of them is onions, okay? And you go home and you open up the fridge, you look in your pantry and you realise, crikey, we haven't got any onions. But you know what? There's a few pears here. I will put the pears into the dal. Will your dal taste the same as mine? Yes or no? No. What about if you cook it a second time with pears instead of dal? Will it then taste the same? No, it doesn't matter how many times you do it. If you're following the wrong recipe, you're going to get the wrong result. So being in Amway, being in Network 21 doesn't make you a candidate for success if you're not following the recipe. If you want to get the results that Jim and Nancy Dornan got, or you want to get the results that, Mitch and Deirdre Sala got, or Basil and Leonie Harris got, or Kamal and Jasmine got, if you want to get the same results that Glenda Leonard got, or Peter Cox got, or Gad and Melissa Gabriel got, or Angie Summers got, does it make sense that if you want the same dish out the other end, you've got to follow the same recipe? If you want the same results in this business, does it make sense that you've got to follow the same process, the same recipe? That's what core is. So there's a lot of people look at core and think it's pick and choose. No, it's not. This is the recipe. You change the recipe, you put up with the results, you eat the dal. So one of the things in this recipe is a thing called PV. Okay? Some of which is personal consumption, and some of which is a handful of clients or customers. All right? Now I want to give you the logic of this. How many people in this room want to at least get to 21% and stay there? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll show you there's about 4 ways of doing 21%. One way is one person does PV. You are a full-time hotshot salesman, you move 10 e-springs a month, or you move, 6 or 7 air treatment systems a month. Is it really sustainable? No, obviously it isn't, okay? But that's a full-time professional salesman type approach. Another thing you could do is you could have 10 people in your business who do PV every month. That is a real direct selling business. That's a group of people who are really motivated to sell, they like selling, they're really good at selling, and they perform every month. By the way, if one of them gets pregnant or one of them takes an overseas trip, what happens to your 21% volume that month? You're back to 18%, okay? So it's not a very stable kind of business, all right? And it also means that you've got a restricted number of people who can potentially do that, because most people do not want to. They're not really motivated to do that. And they're not really excited about that. They don't really have the skill set that they can do that every single month. Here's another option. You could have 100 people doing 100 PV a month. That is networking. Okay? That's everyone doing a little bit. That's a little bit of personal consumption, a little bit of retail. Anyone can do that model for the business. All right? Now, the last thing is you could have 1,000 people doing 12.5 PV a month. I tried that one. The problem with that is, number one, it takes a long time to put 1,000 people in the network. And if anyone is doing 12.5 PV, do you realise they're not profitable? So they're not really motivated, are they? People doing 12.5 PV quit very quickly because they're not building a business. So out of those four things, which do you think best fits the model of how you want to run your business and what you're trying to duplicate? 100 people doing 100 PV. Some of it is personal consumption. Some of it is that handful of clients or customers. But don't miss that. There are a lot of people trying to build this business and don't understand that using the products and selling the products is part of building the business. It's in core. It's part of the recipe. Don't take that out and then wonder why it doesn't work. All right? Now, to help you generate 100 to 200 PV on a continuing basis, on an ongoing basis. So our first topic today was core. Not the whole of core, but just a little part of core. And the part of core I want to emphasize is you need to use the products, you need to retail some products, you need to generate PV on a continuing basis. One of the recognitions later today, I believe, is 600 personal PV. It's just to show you that with a little bit of effort, a little bit of attention, a little bit of balance, you can generate a couple of hundred PV without a whole lot of trouble, without a whole lot of effort. It is doable. So that'll be one of the recognitions you can have a look for later on. Okay, now the second topic I want to cover very quickly. You may have heard me talk about this before, but I think it's really important. Do you know, at the follow-up, one of the questions I like to ask people is, doing what you're doing in your current career, will it give you what you want? Is that the kind of question you ask people? At some point in a follow-up, you've shown them the business and you ask them, look, in your current career, your current profession or your current business, is doing what you're doing now going to get you where you want to go? You ask that kind of question? Yeah. Well, you know what? It's a very useful question to ask yourself in this business. Because there's a lot of people fooling themselves, a lot of people kidding themselves, a lot of people wasting time in this business because they think that being in the Amway business and participating in Network 21 meetings is going to make you a candidate for success. Of course it isn't. There are certain things you have to do in order to be successful in this business. So I would challenge you as a leader to ask yourself the question, is doing what you're doing now in your Amway business going to get you where you want to go? Is doing what you're doing now in building your Amway business going to get you to Emerald or Diamond or wherever it is you want to go? Because hanging around and duration and time spent in this industry does not make you a candidate for success. As Bob Andrews says, sitting in a hen house won't make you a chicken. No matter how long you sit in that hen house, you are not going to become a chicken. No matter how long you're in this business, if you're not doing what it takes to be successful, you will not become successful. Success doesn't come to you by accident and by duration. Success comes about because you do enough of the right things. And so my topic, number 2 topic today, is this thing called, what I would call intensity. All right? Now, I like watching a little bit of sport, sometimes on TV. And they have this thing called American Ninja. Has anyone seen American Ninja? It's this kind of CrossFit type of sport. A lot of balance, a lot of strength, a lot of upper body strength, agility and so forth. And it's kind of like an obstacle course. So you start and they put the stopwatch on. Then you've got to, balance, do some balance. You've got to do some overhead work, aerial work. You've got to do some dynamic moves, some leaps and those sorts of stuff. And how many people have seen American Ninja or that kind of thing? So you know what I'm talking about, okay? Now, one of the things I like about that particular event or that type of sport is that some of the elements of the obstacle are either pass or fail. Agreed? I mean, you either reach that next level or you're out of the competition. Like you drop out. You can't just plod along and eventually get to the finish. There are certain moves and certain things that you have to accomplish, and they're hit or miss. They're pass or fail. And so it's a very interesting sport to watch. But the point I was trying to make is some of the moves that people have to make require an intensity of effort. Not repeated effort, not duration of effort, but an intensity of effort. One of the things they have is this curved vertical wall. It starts out curved and then it gets vertical. And effectively you have to jump up about, 12 feet or, modern metrics, 3.5 metres or whatever it is. You have to get 3.5 metres off the ground. You cannot do it slowly. You cannot do it progressively. You cannot do it inch by inch. It requires an intense burst of effort, a lot of strength, a lot of sudden movement to get up to that level. Does that make sense? Now, in this business, there's a certain intensity of effort that's required to create momentum in your business and grow to the next level. Simply being in this business, plodding along, will not get you to the next level because it does not create momentum. I've given this illustration numerous times, so forgive me if I give it again, but boiling water. Anyone ever boiled water? Not with the electric kettle, but have you ever put boiling water on a gas stove? Right? Now, if you put that kettle of water on a gas stove and your gas goes from 1 to 10, if you put the gas on 1 or 2, the water doesn't actually boil. Why doesn't it boil? Because you are putting heat into the kettle, but the kettle is losing heat the whole time. It's radiating heat, the steam coming off and so forth. So the heat in minus the heat out is not enough to get the water to 100 degrees and boil. I had an argument with one of my downline one day. They said, no, if you keep it on long enough, it'll boil. I said, trust me, it won't. Okay? The physics and the thermodynamics is fairly simple. The heat in has to be greater than the heat loss. So the physicists are nodding our heads, If the heat in is not enough to cover the heat loss, it just warms up and stays at 60 or 70 degrees. You get warm water and you get a big gas bill. But you don't get boiling water. Now, the same water, if you turn it from 2, could be on 2 for an hour, it won't boil. But you turn it up from 2 till 10, that same water will boil in 1 or 2 minutes. Probably 60 seconds. Bang, it's boiling. Why? Because it requires an intensity of effort. It requires an intense amount of heat for a short period of time. It boils. Make sense? Your business has got heat in and heat out. The heat in is you showing plans. The heat out is people cooling down and quitting, correct? So what we have to do is we have to put enough activity in and enough apps in fast enough, faster than the rate at which people cool down and quit, to create momentum and grow our business to the next level. So there's an intensity of effort required. Listen, don't kid yourself. Don't fool yourself. Don't waste your time in this business. If you are not doing 15 to 20 plans a month, don't go and ask your upline the embarrassing question, when do you think I can go silver? You can't. You are not going 21%. You will not reach platinum and founders platinum and a decent business if you are not willing to put in a certain intensity of effort, because you cannot create enough momentum. The rate at which you're bringing people in is not enough to cover the rate at which people cool down, slow down, quit, get distracted, get discouraged, everything else. So we've got to have a certain intensity of effort. You have to do a certain amount of intensity until you get to that next level that we're talking about, which could be platinum, it could be emerald, it could be diamond, whatever your goal is. There's a certain intensity required for you to get to that next level. So bite it off and do it. If that's what it requires, get it done. Just make a decision. All right, I'm going to stop playing with this. I'm getting serious. I want results. Put the throttle on. Jim Dornan talked a lot about flying an aeroplane. When you want to take off an aeroplane, they typically put, once it's all clear, all ready to go, everything's ready, they get to the end of the runway. Do they put the throttle on half to conserve fuel? No. The throttles are all the way forward, flat out, intense effort, all the way until not only taken off, but climb to that, cruising altitude or wherever they want to be. Now, what a lot of people do in their Amway business is they start trundling down the runway at 15 plans or whatever it is, and then some slight discouragement, back to 8 plans. Oh, wait a minute, we want to go to Bali, flat out, 30 plans, couple of months. Oh, now we need a break, get distracted, back to 15 plans, back to 8 plans. And you're fiddling with the throttles, off and on, up and down, up and down, up and down. You never take off. You know what happens? You run out of runway. You crash and burn down the end. That's not what you want to have happening. So what you want to do is you want to decide, are we taking off or not? Are we going silver or not? Are we going platinum or not? Are we going emerald or not? All right, if that's your goal, then get the throttles, put them all the way forward, and then keep going with that level of effort until you get to the level of business that you want. That's why we talk a lot about 15 plans. That's why we talk about Silver Eagle. That's why we talk about Gold Eagle. Now, as an Australian, I think I'm basically lazy. I hated that. I would much rather be able to plod along and eventually get to where I want to go. But this business doesn't work that way. When you're busy and you're at work and you need to get to work Monday to Friday, and you wake up in the morning and you want a cup of coffee, of course you put the gas on 10 if you want to boil the water and make a cup of coffee. Now, when it comes to Saturday and you don't have to go to work, so you've got plenty of time, how many of you decide, well, let's just put the gas on 2 because I've got plenty of time now? You don't do that. You still boil the water on 10 because that's how it works. You know, you want boiling water, you put it on 10. So you're in this business. Stop wasting time with the gas on 2. I mean, you could have the gas on 2 while you're warming up, while you're learning the system, while you're getting some courage, while you're getting some belief. But don't fool yourself with the gas on 2, you are actually going to go silver or platinum or move on. Number 3. Should we change topic? I mean, he's been ranting at me long enough about doing the work, but, should we move on? All right, point number 3. I want to talk about doing a follow-up. Now, let's just zoom out again. Let's get this big picture. We had a very good CD, January RCD from Christy Arwan, who did a weekend seminar in Malaysia last year, where he talked about focus on the why, not the how. And the why is the big picture. The why is, why am I doing this? Why is this worth the effort? Why am I going through this, painful process or whatever? You need to know what your dream is. You need to know what motivates you. You need to be excited about something. But having got that, the how does become relevant. I mean, it is important that you understand how to build this business. So point number 3 I want to talk about is a follow-up. Because at some point, we want to get good at doing a follow-up. Now, I've done this on CD before. Hopefully it's on Channel 21. But I just want to remind you, the follow-up is not about answering questions. Prospects can dream up all kinds of stupid questions. And usually they are stupid questions, right? So we can't offend people and we can't insult people by saying, listen, that's a stupid question, I don't want to answer it. We have to humour people by giving them a little bit of feedback, answer some of their questions, try and address some of their concerns. But you know what? A good follow-up is not answering questions. A good follow-up is asking questions. If there was one line that I'd like you to remember, it's this. I believe you can succeed in building this business if you learn to ask better questions. Leaders ask better questions. Now, if you're a leader in this business, what you want to do is you want to get to the follow-up and you want to have enough people skills and enough posture that you earn the right to ask the questions. That you have the confidence that you are there to ask the questions, not answer the questions. So take control of the follow-up. Find a way where you can get off their agenda, which is asking stupid questions, and get onto your agenda, which is you asking intelligent questions. Stop wasting your time trying to answer every question that prospects come up with. A good follow-up is when you ask the questions and you ask the 4 key questions. I'll just go through them very quickly. But you first of all paint their dream again, revisit their dream, get a picture of what it is they want. I normally ask them what they want to do with more money and what they want to do with more time. And I get 4 or 5 things, financial objectives, 4 or 5 things, time objectives. Now, they're typically the same. I want to be debt-free, I want to have a house, I want to have a better car, I want to look after my parents, I want to pay for my children's education, I want to take decent holidays. Okay? On the time side, where do you want to go on your holidays? Where do you want to see? Where do you want to visit? What places do you want to see? What would you do with more time? Would you look after your health? Would you do some sport, recreation, hobbies, blah, blah, blah? So you get those 2. And then you ask people these 4 quick questions. Number 1, is doing what you're doing now in your career, in your current profession, your current business, is it going to get you those results in the next 5 years? Question number 1, is doing what you're doing now going to get you where you want to go in the next 5 years? Most people, if they're honest, the answer would be no. Write down the question, write down the answer. Professionals in this business don't just talk to people. Professionals in this business communicate with people with pen and paper and write down the question and write down the answer. There's a formality about writing something down. It enables people to see what you're talking about and it makes it difficult for them to backtrack and change their answer later. Okay? So write down the answer. The second question is, listen, if what you're doing now is not going to give you what you want, it's pretty simple. You've got a choice. And I write down the word choice. What are their 2 choices? One choice is to compromise, and that's what most people do. Most people would like to go and take a holiday in France. Instead, they look around and say, you know what, there's pretty cheap flights to Bali. We'll go to Bali. Okay? Most people compromise. Most people would like to have a really nice car, but settle with the fact that there's nothing wrong with a Toyota. Okay? Most people would like to have a bigger house, but there's nothing wrong with my current apartment. Okay? Most people would like to be able to have a better standard of living, but most of us are willing to compromise. So the first choice is to compromise. The second choice is to look for a better way. Write that down. Do you want to compromise? You want to look for a better way? Ask them to choose. Now, of course, if they say they want to compromise, they're willing to cut back, guess what? They're not really a prospect for your business. We're looking for people to say, I'm looking for a better way. I don't want to compromise. I want those goals. Those dreams are important to me. I'm looking for a better way. So if they choose a better way, we've written it down. That's their choice. I circle it. Question number 3. Question number 3 is, if you're successful in this business, let's say you make Diamond or Founders Diamond or whatever it is, if you're successful, would that enable you to achieve those dreams and goals within the next 5 years? So it's the same as question 1, but instead of your career getting you there, if you're a diamond, if you're successful in this business, would that enable you to get there? So as a diamond, would we be able to meet your goals and objectives? Now the answer is usually yes, or they might say, I'm not sure. So then I ask them, well, would you be much closer to achieving the dreams and goals or further away? I'd be much closer. Fine, that's the answer we're looking for. So the answer would be yes. If I'm successful in this business, it's going to get me much closer to achieving those dreams and goals that I just talked about. Question number 4, do you want to try? Now your upline might be able to give you better questions. Go ahead, ask your upline what questions they like, what questions they use. It took me probably 12 to 18 months to learn to ask these questions. But when I started using these questions, I got much better results. If you go to the follow-up and you don't ask these questions, can I be honest with you? You failed. Because your job was to ask these 4 questions. When you sit down with a prospect, you can't be rude, you can't insult them, you can't offend them. But you have to get off their topic, which is a waste of time, and get onto your topic. And you need to ask those 4 questions. So when you leave your house at night or you leave work in the afternoon and you are going to a follow-up, what's your job? Your job is to ask those 4 questions. If you ask those 4 questions, you did a good follow-up. If you did not ask those 4 questions, you did not do a good follow-up. Now, you think I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself. I've got people in my business, I meet them after they've been in business for 2 or 3 months. They've been to weekend seminars, they've been to business previews, they listen to CDs. I meet people who've been in my business 3 months, and I sit down and I ask them these 4 questions. They've never been asked these 4 questions. How do they know what to do? They don't know what they're in, they don't know why they're doing this. This is first base. Until we've asked these questions, how can you expect people to go out and build this business? We need to ask these questions. If you don't ask these questions and you wait for the random IBO that suddenly decides that they're going to commit to doing this and they're going to follow the system, they're going to build, well, you could build a business that way, but that's unpredictable. Figure out whether you're talking to a prospect who actually wants something and can identify that this business could help them get it. So ask these questions. Now, this is a leaders' meeting. That's why I'm talking about this, because this is relevant to leaders. If we talk about this at the general session, whoosh, it's going over most people's heads. What's he talking about? But you as leaders, you need to get good at this stuff. Not mediocre at this stuff, not so-so at this stuff, not okay at this stuff. You need to get good at this stuff. I could ask these questions in my sleep. Why? Because I've done it a few thousand times. And when you get good at asking these questions a few thousand times, you'll be good at sponsoring people. You'll not only sponsor people into the business, you'll sponsor people into the system. And you'll get people started who want to build a network and can work with you. I remember reading a book a couple of years ago that defined learning. And it said learning is defined as a change in behaviour. So if we're sitting here today and you've heard these 4 key questions and you think to yourself, wow, that's something I could do. Yeah, I could start asking those questions. You might think today that we've learned something. The truth is you haven't learned anything until there's a change in behaviour. You haven't learned anything until you take these 4 questions and actually apply them and actually do it and actually sit down with a prospect. In fact, most of us could sit down with a new IBO who's already in our business and hasn't been asked these questions. Start there. Start asking questions. I've got people in my business for 6 months. I'll sit down with them and I'll ask them these questions. They haven't been asked these questions. Why? Because they're being led by a leader who's not a leader. They're being led by someone who does not know how to lead. They're in the business with someone who does not know how to find out what they want and whether what they're doing will get them there. This is step 1. Okay? Stop wondering why people, don't make a list of 100 names and don't have set up 2 home meetings and aren't using 10 or 15 products. They haven't been asked these questions. They don't know what they're doing. So start here. Start by asking these questions. We're now at topic number 4, which is handling objections. As leaders, as we interact with prospects and new IBOs and so forth, it's inevitable that we're going to get objections. And it's important that we learn how to handle objections. It's more important that we equip other people how to handle those objections. So I like to do a workshop on a periodic basis where one of the things we do is we teach people how to handle objections. You check with your upline, what's the best way of handling objections? But if you go and find Mitch Sala's CD, and it's called Decide to Get Good at It. Thank you. I had in my mind a Peter Cox CD, but it was not that. Decide to Get Good at It by Mitch Sala. Now, in my opinion, it's the best CD I've ever heard on handling objections. It's really straightforward and it's really simple. And here's how you handle objections. Are you listening? Okay? You look at the person, you acknowledge the objection. Okay? You nod, you listen to them. Probably a good idea to feed it back. So now what you're telling me is you've got a full-time career, you've got family, you've got plenty of commitments, and you are frankly very busy. So what concerns you is, how would I find the time to build this business? Is that what you're telling me? You feed it back to him. Did I hear you correctly? Do I understand what your concern is? Do I have some empathy that, this is a rational objection, right? You're making sense to me. And then, listen carefully, you say, apart from that, is there anything else that would prevent you from giving this a shot? Now, don't parrot the same words over and over again. You can, manoeuvre around, the English language has got enough vocabulary that we could change it a bit. So the next time, he then tells me, I've said to him, is there anything else? And then he comes up with, well, I'm an engineer and I've trained as an engineer and I don't know how to sell. I'm not this kind of person that can succeed in this business. And I acknowledge it. Yes, I understand. Obviously your training is engineering. You work in the engineering field and this is not exactly, what you're experienced at. But besides that, do you see anything else that would prevent you from going ahead with this? Acknowledge, feed it back. Is there anything else? Now you keep doing that because pretty soon you'll realise the prospects are not very well trained. They've only got 3 or 4 objections and then they give up. Okay? His next one be, well, I know someone who tried this and failed. Look, I acknowledge that. I'd be lying to you if I said to you, no, everybody who does this succeeds. I mean, obviously there are people who've done this or tried this and have failed. But apart from that, do you see anything else that would prevent you from, giving this a shot, taking the next step, moving to the next step? Pretty soon, he's going to run out of objections. That is how to handle objections. Acknowledge the objection, listen to the objection, feed it back, and then ask them, besides that, is there anything else? Apart from that, is there anything else? Normally, when we've done that a few times, I would finish off by saying, so if Noah was the prospect, I'd be saying to him, well, look, we've got a time constraint here. We've got skill set. This is outside your comfort zone. This is not something you've done before. And the third one was other people have tried this and failed. Now, acknowledging those 3 things, okay, if we handled those 3 concerns to your satisfaction, you could put a tick beside that, that's all dealt with. Okay? What do you think now would be your biggest obstacle in getting this thing started? If we've dealt with those 3 and you're ready to hypothetically, you're ready to give this a go, what do you think is the biggest challenge you're going to face? Okay? Now he's going to give me the real objection. We haven't answered the objection. We haven't provided the solution to the 3 problems he's identified. But we're asking him, if those are dealt with to your satisfaction, what else? Is there anything else? Okay? That is how to handle objections. Go and listen to the CD and get good at it. Now, learning is defined as a change in behaviour. You have to change your behaviour and stop arguing with prospects and trying to answer their questions. And you have to start doing this. Apart from that, is there anything else? Yes, I acknowledge that. Besides that, is there anything else? I understand what you're saying. Listen, in addition to that, is there anything else? Is there anything else? Apart from that, besides that, okay. When you get good at that, you'll find that you can move past having an argument with people and you can start directing people towards the system and towards the answers. And the answers are varied. Sometimes the answer is listen to a CD. Sometimes the answer is come to a meeting. Sometimes the answer is read this book. Sometimes the answer is come and meet my upline. Sometimes the answer is give them an answer. Sometimes the answer is a story. Sometimes the answer is an illustration. Sometimes the answer is try this product, do this shopping survey. Sometimes the answer is come down to the shop, have a look at the company. Sometimes the answer is, the answer is actually here in starting point. So why don't we write down your name here, give me a list of 100 names and I'll answer your question. And just go ahead and take the first step with them. So there are many different ways of proceeding, but the foundation is listen to the objection, acknowledge it, And then apart from that, is there anything else? Why are we talking about this? Because you're leaders. Hopefully you're motivated. Hopefully you're inspired. Hopefully you've got a dream. Hopefully you've got a work ethic. Now we want to know how to do it. And we want to polish up on our skills and make sure we're effective so that we're getting better results. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 5. Actually, can I cheat here? Okay. I'm going to switch it to 6. They're going to be 6 points. Number 5, I'm going to tell you a story about our Bangladeshi gardeners. Okay. As it happens in Malaysia, I belong to a community, and our community has figured out that, yes, we all pay taxes, and we pay tax to the local government, the town council, and so forth, and they're supposed to send out these work crews that cut the grass and keep the place clean. Well, I'm not allowed to make political statements, but, where I'm living, we pay a lot less tax than you do. But equally, we get a lot less service than you do, okay? So there's rubbish everywhere, nothing gets cleaned up, nothing gets tidied up, the whole place is a mess. So our community decided, well, we still have to pay tax, but we'd actually like to have the place cleaned up. So we hired our own 2 Bangladeshi gardeners, and their job is to clean up the place, okay? So we have about 140 houses in our community, and I decided that one of my community service efforts would be I would volunteer to supervise these guys and just, get the job done, okay? Check up on them, make sure they know what the task is, get the task done and so forth. Because most of the people where I live are kind of rich, but they're rich and not free, okay? So they're rich, but they're always in the office. They're rich, they're always at work or whatever it is. But I'm sort of rich and free, so I can actually spend the time, hanging out with the gardeners and making sure they're doing their job. Now, what happened was we moved to this housing area about 3 years ago. And for the first year, I wasn't involved, okay? I was just, I hadn't really put roots down and said, right, I'll live here, I'm going to take an interest in the place. But from 2 years ago, I identified that the head gardener was useless, okay? He was useless. He was lazy, he was a liar, he was uninterested in doing the work, he was unmotivated, he was dishonest, he was trustworthy, he was completely the wrong character. And for 2 years, I was supervising someone who was completely unsuitable to do the job. And it was very frustrating because I'm not the head of the committee. I'm not the chairman of the committee. I don't have the right to actually hire and fire. But for 2 years, I kept giving the feedback to this committee. You know what? This guy's no good. You know what? This guy doesn't know how to do this job, can't be trusted to do this job. He's not the right person. And for 2 years, this committee kept this guy on in the job. You know why? Because it was too much effort to get rid of him, and they were too worried about how we're going to replace him. Now, if you're running a business, it's not a business, it's just a community organisation, but if you're running a business or an organisation and you feel that you can't sack the person because you can't replace them, who's got the power? He's got the power. If you feel that you can't fire the person and you can't get rid of the person because you're worried about can I actually replace them, who's in control? They're in control. So for 2 years, this gentleman, this gardener was in control. Turn up for work late, have breakfast at work. One day, he's sitting there having breakfast on work time. I said to him, why don't you bring in the paper and read the paper? So for 2 years, I'm giving feedback to this committee. I think it'd be a good idea to get rid of this bloke. Well, finally, they didn't even make the decision to sack him. Finally, he actually, what you would call, hung himself because he took $400 payment and then asked for it again. So the committee finally decided, wait, that's kind of stealing, isn't it? Yes. I think we should actually let this guy go. I'm thinking, 2 years ago would have been a good time to do it, but finally we sacked the guy. The guy's out. They were worried about replacing him. 2 days later, we had a replacement. Okay? So for 2 years, we put up with substandard work, shoddy work, slipshod work, ineffective work, incompetent work. For 2 years, we put up with rubbish because they wouldn't sack this guy, and in 2 days, they replaced him. The replacement who come in understands work. He has a work ethic. He doesn't just turn up and expect to get paid because he's a nice smiling face, okay? He understands that his job is to do some work, and based on that productive work, he gets paid. So problem solved, right? Why am I telling you this story? Because most of you have not got an active IBO that you can build a leg with. You're wasting your time, and you can waste your time for 2 years with the wrong person. Oh, this is my leg for Emerald. No, it's not. That's rubbish, okay? That is a complete waste of time. That is the wrong character. They have no work ethic. They have no vision. They have no belief. They have no confidence, whatever. And they'll do anything other than work. They'll make up stories. They'll tell you lies. They'll feed you any information they want. They'll blame everyone else. They just won't work. And they are not a leg. So hopefully you remember this. Look across your front line and ask yourself, is this actually, someone who could build the business? And by the way, the replacement is a Bangladeshi gardener and he's doing a good job, The reason I'm telling you this story is because I see a lot of people in this business who are stuck with the paradigm that that's the only leg you've got. Now listen, if you don't believe me, go and find Amway's business manual. Go and read the business manual carefully, because what you'll find is it says this. It says to be a diamond, you must be a qualified platinum, 6 months in a 12-month period at the 21% level, and have 6 legs, qualifying at the 21% level for 6 legs in that 12-month period, correct? And it does not say, and one of them has to be your brother. And it does not say, and one of them has to be this colleague of yours. It does not say that. It does not say, and one of them has to be this person that you're trying to build with. It just says 6. Now, this would be a very difficult business if it said 6 legs and one of them has to be your brother, or one of them has to be your neighbour, or one of them has to be this colleague of yours, or one of them has to be this downline. It doesn't say that. Wake up. It says any 6 legs. Any 6 legs. Of about 4 billion people on planet Earth. 6 legs. And it doesn't give any names. It doesn't say, and one of them has to be this downline, and one of them has to be this. It doesn't say that. It just says 6 legs. Any 6 legs. So what you need to do is you need to do what our committee is sort of finally getting around to, is understanding, is you can hire people, you can fire people. You don't have to tell them they're fired, but you have to have the confidence to realise, don't let that leg hold you hostage. Because if you believe that you have to build that leg, they're in control. You have to have enough legs that you're in control. Now, the team approach is wonderful because it liberates you from the idea that you couldn't strategically influence growth in depth in a leg. But don't take it too far and realise that you don't have any options. You need enough options on your front line that you are in control of your business. You hire and you fire. Don't be held hostage by your group. Don't allow your group to have control over you. Don't allow your group to dictate where you spend your time and where you spend your effort. You need to be the leader. You need to be in control. You're in control when you have more legs than you need for your next goal. If your next goal is emerald and you've only got 3 legs, your group's in control. If your next goal is emerald and you've got 6 legs, you've got some control. Most people never get in control. Most people never put in enough intensity for long enough to have enough choices that they're in control of their business. So they're like my committee. Oh, what happens if this guy? Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? You need to be in control. You need enough people that you can work with, that you're in control of your business. And when you're in control of your business, it's a totally different business. When I know that we can hire the gardener and fire someone better, I'm in control. I can relax. I'm not stressed. When you know that you can replace that leg and you can find someone better, and when you do it, you're in control. You can relax. This business is fun. Most people never get to the stage where the business is fun. Most people are held ransom, held hostage by a group that's in control of you. Most of us, your legs are controlling you instead of you controlling where you want your business to go. So make a decision. Go out and put enough on your front line. Why do you think we talk about, 6 legs to the weekend seminar, 9 legs and so forth? I mean, it's not just decoration. This is so that you have posture, you have control. You decide where you're going to spend your time and where you're going to spend your effort. Point number 6. We're going to wrap up here. What we want to talk about briefly is, let's make this the best seminar ever for you and for your business. Now, making this the best seminar ever has got nothing to do with the guest speaker. That's good because you're stuck with me. But making this the best seminar ever is you deciding that you're going to use this function to move your business forward. For example, have you got a goal? Have you got a goal of where you want to be by the next weekend seminar? Have you got a goal? Have you got a written goal? Have you checked with your upline? How many tickets, how many legs, what PV, etc.? Have you got a goal? You have to be clear on what our objectives are today. Our objectives today include getting people registered on CEP. We want people to use the system, plug into the system, use the tools, duplicate the tools. For this to be the best seminar ever, you have to understand what's our objective today. Our objective today is, yes, create a bit of belief, create a bit of excitement, create a bit of energy hopefully give people some confidence to take the next step. But you have to take that next step with them. So you have to book the next follow-up. You have to book the next startup. You have to book the next team phone session, whatever it is. Don't just let people get excited and 3 weeks later call them and say, oh, we've got another function. Don't waste today by getting people excited and doing nothing with them. If they're here today and they've got some belief and got some excitement, do something with them. It could be make a list. It could be revisit their dream. It could be make a list. It could be teach the invite. It could be get them to a team phone session. It could be set up a home meeting. It could be do a shopping survey. It could be to close on the CEP or Channel 21 on the next ticket. But do something with people. Make this the best seminar ever by taking people one step forward from today. What's the next step? What's the next appointment? When can we sit down and take that step with people? So let's make this the best seminar ever today. The other thing we can do to make this the best ever is we can create an atmosphere and some energy and excitement here. Okay? Now that's not up to me alone because I'm all you've got. I'm the guest speaker. You're stuck with me, but you can raise the atmosphere in this room. When most people get to work on Monday morning, is there energy and excitement? No. But we can make a difference here today. We can make sure that people come into this room, feel some energy, feel some excitement, get a bit of a buzz and realise this is a winning team I want to be on. But we do that by creating the atmosphere. We do that by making sure we're not spending time on the internet, checking Facebook, checking this, that, the other, whatever it is. You're in the meeting, pay attention. It's not for my benefit. For all I care, you could fall asleep. I don't care. But if you want to create a great atmosphere in here, pay attention. If you want to create a great atmosphere in here, make sure that you are observant. Kind of like take notes, for example. If you're in here and you want to create a great atmosphere, pay attention during the recognition. If it's not your downline on stage, it's more important that you pay attention during the recognition. Okay? Give the applause. Give people a high five, whatever it is. Pay attention during the recognition. At 9% Leaders Club, at 12% LC+, people aren't making a lot of money. True? 9% Leaders Club. You're making a lot of money? Of course not. But we can give people any amount of recognition we choose by showing some respect during the recognition. Listening for the person's name, listen for their occupation, give the appropriate applause, give them a high five, whatever it is. That creates atmosphere, that creates buzz, that creates energy. Do we need to do this? Of course we do. We want people to come in here and realise this is a winning team and they want to be on it.
While the techniques and approaches